So in the part of our last session, we were discussing about the elastic load balancing and the auto scaling, where we saw a real-time part of how load balancing can be achieved and how the auto scaling can also be achieved. So in the auto scaling, we basically look at two important parts. One is about the launch configuration, and the second is about the auto scaling group that we create. Right. So launch configuration basically helps us to create a configuration file which will be helping us with the exact configuration with what the system has to get launched with. And the auto scaling group will actually help us to attach the load balancer as well as manage the number of EC2 instances overall. So quickly I'll take you through a tour of what we have completed. Next, these are the four topics yet remaining on the EC2 section. So quickly going to the very first one, that is about the placement groups. I'll open up a slide on the placement groups. This is a little theoretical part. I don't have any practical section on the placement groups, but it's really good to understand what placement groups actually does. So there we go. We have got the placement group slide, and we'll just go through it on the view. So as I just said, placement group, we're just going to have a overview and brief about what it helps us to do. As such, we do not have any practical part of lab here in this course. So it is basically a part of the advanced courses. So it's good to have an idea of what it helps us with. So a placement group is a logical grouping of instances within single availability zone. Now we have heard about RAID volumes, right? So what does it basically do? So you can combine four physical or more than any of them. So it can be 1, 2, 3, 4, any of the numbers. So you can combine them into a single virtual volume and then get a better IOPS, right? So each volume while we create has got 100 baseline IOPS. Now if I try to combine all 10 of them, then I get 1000 IOPS. But if I actually go with a single volume of 1000 IOPS, I'll have to pay a lot of money. Similarly, in the placement group, what we are trying to do is, if I have the different EC2 instances in one single availability zone, right? So I can try to go ahead and group them up so that if one instance is not used, I can actually leverage the CPU and the RAM capabilities of that, right? So placement group is basically a logical grouping of instances within single availability zone. Using placement group enables the application to participate in low latency 10 Gbps network, right? So basically we will be able to achieve low latency over the better networking. So placement groups are recommended for applications that benefit from low network latency and high network throughput or both. So we usually get a better network throughput, as I just said, once we try to combine the EC2 instances which are part of single availability zone. So there are a few rules that we need to actually follow before we can actually do a placement group. So these are all the rules, right? And now let me show you where you actually get these placement groups in the EC2 section. So I have logged in into my AWS account. So on the left hand side of this navigation bar, if you go down, you should be able to see the placement groups that is part of network and security, right? So here you can see my mouse cursor being hovering to the orange color text which is saying placement groups. So if you go ahead and click on the placement groups, so currently I do not have any. It does ask me to create one placement group. So it's very simple while we go ahead and create it. So if I click on create placement group, it just asks me for the name. So I can say So I'll say my first placement group, and then we have a different strategy that we want to use. So one is either cluster based strategy or spread based strategy, right? So I guess the cluster based will be one where one of them goes down, the second one will act up, and then help us out. And the spread base will be the one where all the servers will be spread across in a one single shot, right? So there are a couple of strategies, and then you have a command line interface if you want to make use of, right? So you can perform some actions on this page using the command line interface. So depending upon the OS that we are using, whether it's a Windows or a Linux based machine, you can actually start running some commands from here itself on those. All EC2 instance is a part of placement group. So once you create a placement group, then while you're going to launch the instance, right? So if I click on the EC2 instances and click on the launch instance, so let's select Amazon Linux AMI at this point of time. And then as a part of free tier, we will select the T2 micro on the next step. So if you have seen through the step number 3, exactly after the VPC details, we do get the placement group as a option. So we can add the EC2 instances to the placement group only while they are getting launched. That is the very first condition to remember. The placement groups, even though they are created, I can add the EC2 instances to the placement group only while they are getting launched, and that is usually available at the step number 3, exactly after the VPC details, right? So it basically shows me placement group, and if I say add instances of the placement group, it will ask me if you would like to add to existing placement group. So if you have an existing one, you can see in the drop down. If not, you can go ahead and create a new one as well, right? So you just need to give the name and then give the strategy as well, right? So here it clearly shows, so a logical grouping of your cluster instances. Placement groups have low latency, full bisection, 20 Gbps bandwidth between the instances, right? So you can go ahead and put across the placement group and then decide the strategy. So if you are using the spread group, remember you can have a maximum of 7 instances in the placement group. So first rule is clear. We can add the EC2 instance to a placement group only while it is being launched, right? So after that, we will not be able to add it through. And let's go to the other rules and learn through. So here as we see, the first thing says a placement group cannot span multiple availability zones. So if you remember the very first slide that we went through, right, it says it's a logical grouping of instances within single availability zone, which means if I have two different instances in two different availability zones, I cannot have this placement group combination with that two instances. So placement group can be done only with the instances that are part of the same availability zone. And whatever name we specify for the placement group, it should be unique, right? So if you have already picked up that name, I cannot use the same placement group name. It seems like S3 bucket, so whatever name we give, it should be unique, and only certain type of instances can be launched within the placement group. So earlier this restriction was there, like I can launch only C4 based machines or M4 based machines or R4 based machines only inside the placement groups, but now they have enabled it for all of them. So currently we saw how for T2 micro also we can go ahead and make use of this placement group. And the next important one is AWS recommends homogeneous instances within placement group. Now what does the homogeneous instances mean? Homogeneous basically means they are of same family and they are of same type, which means if I'm trying to create a placement group, it is much more recommended practice that I try to combine the instances which are of same size like T2 micro or C4 large or maybe R4 large. So I try to combine the machines which are of same size. I should not be doing like T2 micro and C4 large and R4 large I want to combine into one. No, I can combine, but I might not be able to get the better output of a placement group. But as per the rules of placement group, if we try to combine 5 machines of T2 micro, or maybe the only 5 machines of C4 large, or maybe only the 5 machines of R4 large, then it will give me a better output. But if I try to combine a variety of different EC2 instances into one of them, then it is not going to help me. Also, homogeneous means same family and the same operating system as well. So I cannot combine a Linux box and a Windows box together and then say I want a better output. Or I cannot say I want to have one CentOS box and one Ubuntu box and then I want to add it to placement group. You can surely add it, but it's not going to yield you much output performance. So if you're trying to add Amazon Linux machines, try to add try to add all of them with Amazon Linux itself, right? So if you're trying to add all the Windows machines, then go for all the Windows machines to be part of the placement group. And remember, you cannot merge placement groups. So if you already have a couple of the placement groups in which one of the placement group has 3 instances, other one has 4 instances, now if you feel that you want to go ahead and merge them, it's not possible. Next, you cannot move an existing instance into the placement group. So if you think you already have one instance that is already launched and you want to put it into the placement group, it's not possible. You first have to create a AMI out of that instance, and while launching with that AMI, you will be actually able to add it into a placement group. These are the most important rules that we need to remember, and for sure there is one or two questions that is coming up in the developer exam and the solution architect exam as well on the placement group. Just remember the important rules of the placement group that are to be followed up. So one thing is it cannot span across the multiple availability zones. Second is it should be the group name should be unique whatever you give, and the third is to use homogeneous instances, right? So you cannot have the combination of different types, families, and other things. And you cannot merge the placement groups, and you cannot move the existing instance also into the placement group, right? So these things will not be able to do. So if you want to add the existing instance, first you'll have to take the AMI out of it, and with that AMI, while you're launching the instance, you should be able to add it to a placement group. So any questions or queries here? Shankar, Divya, anything from your side? How about you, Divya? Any questions on the placement group? Okay. So the next what we are going to do is about the EFS, that is Elastic File System. Now we have surely heard that one hard disk can be attached to a one single computer or a desktop. But let's say if I have a same hard disk to be attached to multiple desktops or multiple laptops or multiple servers at the same time, is it actually possible? Right? So it is not. So similarly, in the world of computing, now if I have one server and if I have one EBS volume, that is okay to combine with. But if I have multiple EBS volumes, or if I have only one EBS volume and multiple servers, right? So if I have one instance, so if I have multiple instances, and if I have, yeah, so if I have multiple EC2 instances and one single EBS volume, it's not possible for me to help all the instances talk to single EBS volume. Rather, I'll have to use something else that is called as EFS, which is called as Elastic File System. Let's go ahead and talk about that Elastic File System. I'll open the slide. So EFS, that is Elastic File System, is basically a storage service for Elastic Cloud Compute instances. Like for servers, I can actually make use of the EFS instead of EBS as well. Now, how does the EFS basically help me? So EFS is easy to use, provides a simple interface that allows you to create and configure file systems quickly and easily. With Amazon EFS, the storage capacity is elastic, growing and shrinking automatically as you add and remove files, so your applications have the storage they need when they need it. So with EFS, basically what we can do is we can connect the multiple servers to the same storage. Apart from that, as the name says, it is elastic in nature, which means the size of the EFS will grow only when you add the files, and when you remove the files, automatically the size will shrink as well. So I do not have to define saying the size. I want 30 GB of EFS volume. I want 100 GB of EFS volume. So I do not have to worry about any of these things. So I can just say I want a EFS volume, and it will automatically give me of minimal size which is available with 6 KB. And after that I can go ahead and start adding the files, and automatically it will start growing up with the time, right? So if I remove the file, it shrinks. If I add the file, it grows. That is where the elasticity of the nature comes into the file system, and I'm only going to pay for the amount of storage that I have used. This looks really good, right? So in the EBS, if I take a 30 GB of EBS SSD volume, I have to pay the charges for all the 30 GB, right? So even though whether I use all 30 GB or not, I still have to pay the charges because I have taken 30 GB of storage space. But in the EFS, that is not the case. The moment you add the file, automatically it grows. The moment you remove the file, it automatically shrinks. So you are going to pay only for the amount of storage that you have actually made use of. So let's look at the two important features of the EFS. That is, one is about automatically growing and shrinking, and the second is about allowing the more than two EC2 instances, or more than 10, or more than 100, or thousands of EC2 instances talking to the same file system or same storage place, right? So let's go ahead and create one. So first thing is we'll create a EFS. So in the services, I'll first select for the EFS. So EFS is a different service that we actually get. So you should be able to see it in the part of storage here. So we have a EFS, and if I'll try to open it up in the new tab, so currently the Mumbai doesn't have a better support for this EFS. So we'll try to go to North Virginia and we'll try to perform the lab there. So I'll go to North Virginia. So there we go. I do get the option of creating a file system here. So let's go ahead and create this. So the moment you say you want to create a EFS file system, it is going to take you to 3 steps in which we'll be able to attain this. So on the left hand side navigation bar, you can see the 3 steps, and on the right hand side, you can see the page is yet loading. And the first thing it asks me about is VPC. So which VPC you want to launch this EFS file system. So currently we are using the default VPC, so I'll just keep that one. And if I scroll down the page, since we are using North Virginia, it is one of the biggest data center, biggest region that Amazon is having, with 6 availability zones. So you can see here I have the 6 availability zones being showcased: US East 1A, US East 1B, 1C, 1D, 1E, and 1F. Right. So if you are going to make use of North Virginia, it has got 6 availability zones. So if you use Mumbai, you will get only 2. If you use Ireland or Tokyo, Sydney, or any of those regions, you will get 3. So 2 is minimum anyway you'll have, and most of the regions do have 3 availability zones, and the North Virginia is only one among them which has got 6 availability zones. So I'll select all of them. So because I can have a EC2 instance which can be a part of any of the availability zone, right? So I want to ensure that if my instance is a part of US East 1D availability zone, still it should be able to connect to EFS, or if it is a part of 1A also, it should be able to connect to the EFS. That's the reason we are selecting all of the availability zones, and then here subnet will automatically come. That is a default subnet which is available in this specific availability zone. So each availability zone will have at least one subnet, and that is automatically popping up here. And then IP address, we'll just keep it as automatic. And then security group, if you see, we have already attached a default security group to this file system, right? Apart from that, if you really want, you can go ahead and attach a security group which will be like web server, right? So we'll just go and attach the web server security group. So there we go. So we just added an extra security group for each of the availability zones. Now let's go ahead and proceed to the next step. So there we go. In the second step, it is basically going to ask me to add some tags. So I'll scroll the page up, and then you should be able to see the tag section. So there we go. It's going to ask me for the tags. So I'll just say my first EFS, that is Elastic File System. And then if you see, I have the next part, that is choosing the performance mode. Now we have different performance depending upon the number of instances that are going to connect to this EFS. So if you think there are only one or 100 of 1 or 10 of EC2 instances going to connect, then we can use general purpose. But if you think it's more than 10 or hundreds or thousands of EC2 instances, then we can actually make use of max input output, which means automatically the EFS volumes will get adjusted to the IOPS, right? So you don't have to go ahead and specifically say I want EFS with 1000 IOPS or 500 IOPS or 5000 IOPS. No. So it automatically adjusts itself with the number of EC2 instances trying to access the file system, but only then you have to mention whether you want a general performance or a max input output performance. So if you have more than 10 plus EC2 instances, it's better to go with max input output performance, and if you have less than that, it's better we go with general purpose. Since you're trying to use it for the normal lab purpose, I guess general purpose will serve the ability to cover this lab. And next we'll choose the throughput mode. So basically, if you are using general purpose, then bursting concept should be enough. But if you are trying to go with max input output, then the provision mode will be a better one. So if you remember, we have two different types of EBS volumes. One is about general purpose, and the second is provision IOPS. So if you go for provision, so you get an option to say what should be the speed of your disk, right? So here you can see the valid range is anywhere between 1 to 1024. So currently we'll use bursting, because for the provision again we'll have to pay the extra money from our pockets for this AWS account, right? So as a part of free tier, we can make use of bursting and the general purpose, and then it is asking you if you would like to enable the encryption, right? So for now I'll say no, and then let's quickly go ahead and add the next step. So there we go. So in the last step, we just go ahead and review what we have selected. So in the step number one, we selected the VPC and then all the availability zones, and then we add up a new security group. And in the second step, we added the tag, and then we gave what should be the performance mode, what should be the throughput mode, and whether the volume should be encrypted or not. So I'll say now let's go ahead and create a file system. And remember, EFS cannot be used with Windows system at this point of time. It is only applicable for the Linux based machines. So I'll just quickly go ahead and say create file system. So this may take a little while. So if I go to the home page here, you can see, scroll the page down, you will be able to see creating as a status. So on the right hand side in the orange color text, you can see it is actually creating. So while this creates, let's try to go ahead and create two EC2 instances. So I'll click on the launch instance. So first we'll select the Amazon Linux AMI, and proceed to the next step where we'll select the free tier T2 micro with one virtual GB and one CPU. In third step, I'll leave everything as default, just ensuring that availability zone should be different, right? So here we're trying to launch it in Mumbai region. So let's go down to North Virginia. Since we have created a file system in the North Virginia, let's try to have a EC2 instance also in that specific region. Okay, so in this, let's quickly go ahead and add the Amazon Linux AMI. And then let's set the T2 micro as a part of our free tier. And in the step number 3, while we are going to configure the instance details, I'm just going to change the availability zone. So I just want to ensure that I have the EC2 instance, which is part of two different availability zones. So the first one I'm going to launch is in the US East 1A, and rest of the options, let it be there as it is. Right? And then quickly go ahead and add the storage. So it's going to be a root volume with 8 GB of size, and then let's go ahead and add the tags. So I'll click on the add tag, give it as name, EFS lab system 1, and then I'll quickly go ahead and select an existing security group that we already have, that is web server, which has got port number 80, port number 22, and port 443 opened up. And while review and launch, I just need to check which is the key pair that I already have in my machine. Right, so quickly review and say launch. So I have this Virginia and Virginia key pair, both of them. So we should be able to use either of it. So I'll pick up the Virginia key pair, and then I'll say I acknowledge I do have this file, and then launch the instance. So if you do not have the PEM file with you, and if you're not sure about it, please create a new one and download it, because if you cannot find the key pair, you cannot log in into the EC2 instance at all. So on the similar lines, let's go ahead and launch a one more EC2 instance. So I'm going to click on the create instance again, and then we are going to select the Amazon Linux AMI, and next we are going to select the T2 micro, which usually comes with one virtual CPU and 1 GB of RAM. And then here in the part of configuring instance details, I'm going to select the subnet, which is going to be 1B this time. So last time it was 1A, this time it's going to be 1B. I just want to ensure that my EC2 instances are in different availability zones, and even though they are in the different availability zone, I should be able to connect to the EFS file system. And next, let's add the storage, which is going to be of 8 GB size for the root volume with general purpose SSD drive. And let's add the tag. I say it as name, So this time EFS lab system 2, and then we'll go ahead and add a security group. So we'll set the existing one, that is basically the web server security group, and then finally launch this machine. With the key pair that we already have. And now let's quickly go ahead and say view instances. Now you can see we have two EC2 instances which will be appearing in the console. So one of them is already in the running mode and second one is yet in the pending mode. So it's fine. So in the meantime, while the second comes up, we'll first log in into the instance that is in running mode. So I'll copy the public IP address and go to the PuTTY terminal. So I'll quickly change the font size and then attach the key pair file and then open the server. So there we go. So if everything goes well, we should be able to get a security alert for key fingerprint. I'll say yes and then log in as EC2-user. I guess something went wrong with our server. Let me restart it once again. Let me check the key pair once again. So it is about Genia key pair. I guess there's some problem with the key here. So since it's been a very long time, I have not used this region, and maybe I have a different key as well. So let me check it once again. So you can always go to key pairs and check when it was created. So this is the key fingerprint. So let's match it out if it is the same one or not. So I'll quickly open the second system as well. I'll copy the IP address, put it to the PuTTY terminal. Yeah, I guess this key fingerprint is completely different from what we are trying to look with. So that is the reason it is failing off. So if you see the key fingerprint on the message box, it starts with F69E and the one that we have is 32C0. So I guess that is a key pair from different account. So as I just said, if we have a wrong key pair, we'll not be able to log in. So all we have to do is destroy these two instances and relaunch the two new of them. So better we'll create a new key pair that will be easier to go with. So let's quickly go ahead and launch two instances. So I'll do a little fast here. Amazon Linux AMI. So I'll quickly select the security group here. Sorry guys, I just got some call in between. So quickly we'll go ahead and launch the machine. So I'm going to create a new key pair. So let's give it as Virgin at December 2018 and download this key pair. So there we go, the key pair is downloaded. And I'll quickly go ahead and launch this instance and create one more EC2 instance, which is going to be a part of separate availability zone as well. So I'll just be a little quick in launching the instance here. So I'll just so there we go. Our both the systems are now launching. So what is the next step that we are going to do is first log in into the instances, and then we will try to distinguish between the two different servers. So I'll just keep one of the servers in the blue color and one of them in the maybe black color box. So I have one of the instances running. So I'll quickly copy this up and then I'll close this putty terminals. So first thing is I need to convert the PEM file to PPK. So first let me go to the downloads and get it. So here I have the Virginia December 2016. I'll go to desktop AWS. So there we go. I have saved the file of PPK. Now I'll quickly go ahead and log in into the server using that files. So there you go. If everything goes well, we are going to get a message of verifying the key fingerprint. I'll say yes and then log in as EC2-user. So this time we should be able to log in and without any problems. And the very first thing we are going to do is sudo space su and clear the screen. And similarly, let me log into the second box. So this time I'm going to give the second box in the green color. So let me show you how do you do that. So I'll just open up a new Pate console. First give the IP address, then in appearance just go ahead and change the font size. So the way we get the option to change the font size, we can also change the color. So you can just click on the colors on the left hand side navigation bar, and in the default background I'm just going to enable the green color maybe for now. So I'll just say green color to be 100 and then say open. So now you can see my server opens up in a green color box. So I'm going to log in as EC2-user. So very first thing that we are going to do is elevate our privileges and then go ahead and clear the screen. So now that we have launched our two servers, you can see one of them is in the black color box and second them is a green color box. And one of them is a part of availability zone 1A, second one is a part of availability zone 1B. The next important step that we are going to do is go to EC2 console, pick up the both instances which are running. So I'll go to the EC2 console first and then pick up both the EC2 instances which are in running mode. So I'll select both of them, and then in the actions networking, I'm going to add one more security group, right? So I don't think it allows both the instances together. So I'll have to do one after the other. So first I'll select one of the EC2 instance, click on the actions, networking, change security group. So we are going to go ahead and change the security group. Right, we already have added web server, but apart from that I would like to add one more security group, that is default security group. Remember, our EFS file system also has got default security group attached. It's the same security group I'm also going to attach here as well. So I'll just say assign security groups. Similarly, the same activity for the second instance. Right, so there we go, we have attached both the security groups. That is, now each instance is having web server and the default security group, and we have already logged in into the instance as well. Let's go back to the EFS file system, where we should be able to see that the file system should have now been created. I'll refresh the page of EFS. So there we go, it has been created. As we see, the DNS name is actually appearing. So this is the DNS name which we are going to use in order to connect to this file system. So EFS file system basically has got a DNS name which will actually help us. So here you can see the mount instructions which are available. So you can open either the first one or the second one, whichever is feasible. So I'll first open the first one. Right, so you can see here some steps are actually available. So if you are actually trying to use Amazon based Linux, then this part of steps are not required for us, right? So if you are using either a Red Hat or maybe a Ubuntu or maybe a SUSE Linux, then first you need to install this NFS utilities, right? So for our Amazon Linux machine, NFS utilities are already pre-installed. If not, you can also still give it a try by trying out this command, which is actually going to install it. So I'll just go ahead and copy this and run it in both the instances. Yeah, so in the black box, we have successfully run it. And now let's try to do it in the green box. So there we go. In the green box also we have successfully run the file. Now let's go back to the EFS console and learn about the next commands. So here if you see, I have to go ahead and create one directory with the name EFS, right? And to that mount point, I'm going to mount this EFS drive, right? So let's go ahead and do it. So first let's create this. So I'll go to the black box first and then say first I'll go to the root directory, and then here we'll create a directory with the name EFS. So if I say ls now, you should be able to see the EFS directory which we have just now created. Similarly, let's repeat the step in the green box. So first we'll go to root directory, that is cd slash, and now here we'll create the directory with the name EFS. So both the places I'm creating a directory with the name EFS, and now we'll quickly go ahead and mount it. So I'm going to pick up the last command. You can pick up either of this command. I mostly use the last one, which is easier to go with. So I'll just copy the command and then get it executed in the both the servers. Right, so it is mounted successfully in the green box. And now let's go to the black box and run the same command. So there we go. In the black box also it has run successfully. So quickly what we'll do is we'll go inside this directory, that is /EFS. So now that we have actually mounted it, so we'll go inside the EFS directory and start adding the files. So I'll use the nano command to add some file. So I'll say nano sample.txt file. So I'm trying to create a txt file from the black box server. So I'll just say this is a sample file. So there we go. I have saved it, and if I say ls, you should be able to see the file that is with the name sample.txt. Now I have not done anything in the green box. I'll just quickly go to green box and go to the directory that is EFS. And if I say ls, you should be able to see that the sample.txt file which we actually created in the black box also exists in the green box as well. Similarly, if I try to create some file in the green box here, let's say I'll say nano, and then here I'll say maybe I want to create index.html page from the green server. So I'll just create one small HTML page. This is a sample index file. Right, so I have saved the file in the green box. Now if I say ls, you should be able to see that I have sample.txt file and index.html file. So index.html file was actually created in the green box. Now if I go back to the black box and just say ls, you can see index.html also appears here, which means these both servers are actually trying to share the same file system. So this is how we actually go ahead and configure the EFS. Remember, we have to use the default security group which is attached to both EC2 instances as well as the EFS file system as well. Right, so this is how we go with the EFS. So in the meantime, I'll just quickly go ahead and as a part of cleanup activity, remember we have to go ahead and remove everything so that we do not incur any extra charges. So I'm going to delete the file system. So once the moment you say you want to delete the file system of EFS, it clearly says it cannot be restored back. So once deleted is deleted, you cannot recover it back, right? So it's a destructive action. So be careful while you do it in the real-time systems. So I'll just delete it. Since it was a lab, it should be fine for us. I'll delete this file system and then quickly go ahead and let's also delete the EC2 instances. There we go. Click on terminate and then say yes, terminate.